Hello, everyone. My name is Nevina Kaiden. I am a librarian at Santa Clara City Library. I am with Lisa Gonzalez from NovaWorks today. We have been offering these programs throughout the year. This is the last one of 2022. We'll see what we are going to offer in the next year. Thank you, Lisa, for your time and being with us today.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm here today to present an overview of creating a job search plan. NovaWorks is doing this in partnership with the City of Santa Clara Library, as Nevin mentioned, and I'm going to provide some good information for those of you who would like to get some strategy formulated around your job search. So just a couple of things. We go over Zoom features really quickly. But as Nevin mentioned, if you do have a question, you're going to go ahead and put that in the Q&A box, which should show up at the bottom of your toolbar. And then if you happen to put something in chat, she'll help me monitor that. Otherwise, let's go over our agenda. I'll do a further introduction of myself, and later in the program, I'll hand some slides over to Nevin to discuss further about City of Santa Clara Library offerings. We will go over a job search plan overview and also the website that Nova has called My Plan for you to be able to access this content. It's free, it's open on the internet. You can access it, you can give that information to others. I'll also go over tips for virtual interviews because all interviews are starting to happen virtually due to COVID and probably going to continue to be virtual. So we'll want to do tips. As I mentioned, I'll hand it over to Nevin to go over library services. And then for those of you who might be interested in accessing Nova services further in terms of registering, I'll briefly go over that. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. But if you do have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put those in the Q&A and we'll pause and answer those as we go along as well. Okay, so just a little bit about myself, but mostly about the NovaWorks Job Center. So my name is Lisa Gonzalez. I'm a career advisor with the NovaWorks Job Center. We are located in both Sunnyvale and San Mateo. We serve 7 cities in northern Santa Clara County, including Santa Clara, and we also serve San Mateo County. All of our services are free to the public. We are federally funded nonprofit, so this is your taxpayer dollars at work. All of our services, again, are free to everyone. At the very end, I will go over some of the steps to take to register if you're interested, but what I'm going to go over today in terms of the job search plan, you can access without registering. You can access just as a member of the public to assist you with job search. All right, so let's kind of go over the job search process that we have laid out here at Nova. I'm going to do a couple things. One is just go over on a high level the kind of the steps 1 through 4, and then we'll go into it more in depth, take a deeper dive. Just as an overview, typically people are in one of these steps. Step 1 is understanding what your focus is. So this is where you know what your next step is in terms of a job title. Perhaps you're wanting to understand if your skills are up to date in terms of what employers' expectations are. Do you need to upskill or add skills, or are you marketable at the moment? A lot of people want to understand salary ranges and market rate. And are there jobs in the area, in the field that you intend to pursue? That's a really important question. So is there some marketability there? Once you have these answers, you are now ready to create your marketing materials, step 2, which is your resume, application, probably your LinkedIn profile as well. This is how you present yourself to employers. Once you've got your marketing materials ready, you are ready to job search in box 3 or step 3. We encourage people to do a creative or multiple strategy approach to job search. Don't rely too heavily just on job boards. That's one aspect, but you're going to want to leverage your network. You're going to want to talk to people. You're going to want to come up with a target company list, and also, aim to get a referral by applying through someone you know. And then, of course, there's events like job fairs, meetups, professional associations, et cetera, which are also great opportunities to find work. So this takes a lot of strategy. And then the phone starts ringing, right? And employers are looking to schedule interviews with you. So, as I mentioned, we'll go over virtual interview tips, but we'll also go over content we have available for you to help prepare yourself for an interview. Preparation is key, and you can certainly start on interview prep before you're in step 4. It's never too early to be ready to answer those questions about what you have to offer and why an employer should hire you. And we do offer some additional resources around negotiation because that's something that most people are a little bit uncomfortable with. So this website, myplan.novaworks.org, I'm going to click on it. It's a hyperlink. I will also just make sure you have it by copying and pasting and putting it in the chat. Or actually, Nevin, could you do that? It looks like I'm not able to do the chat here. But again, as I mentioned, our web content is open to the public. Anyone can use it. There's no requirement to register your name or create a user ID or anything like that. So this will all be available to you to access. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and just go over the 4 steps a little bit more in depth in terms of a deeper dive. As I mentioned, you start with your focus area. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And these are all hyperlinks. All these buttons are live and have additional content. The first one I want to point out is just this organizational piece, organizational tools. Many people tell us that when they're job searching, it's very hard to stay on task. It feels very unstructured. You know, a work day, you know what you're doing all day. Job search, you're having to kind of organize it, and sometimes time just gets away from you. So there's some additional resources here around organizational tips, and you could download an entire toolkit around how to manage your time and organize your job search activities. If you'd like to even create a binder and really be organized with your job search, you can do that. These all allow you to print out some checklists in terms of moving forward. So these are really great here for you to access. Going back, still in the focus stage, we have other buttons. I'm not going to be able to go over every single one just because there's so much content here, but I'll show you some highlights. And then what I'll encourage you to do later is go ahead and click away and see if there's something here depending on what stage you're on. Career assessment is really important. So maybe you've done career assessment before, maybe in school or perhaps at a place of employment. But when you're in career transition or you're thinking about your next step, you really do want to evaluate yourself and what your preferences are. So understanding your skills, where your strengths are, where areas of development are, maybe where there might be skills that need to be put away because they're called burnout skills. This can give you an idea of where your strengths are. Interests, maybe you've done an interest inventory in the past. You'll take an assessment that results in what's called a Holland code or an interest inventory code, a RIASEC. And there's lots of information on the internet that you can delve into more deeply around occupational suggestions based on your interests. My personal favorite is evaluating your values because I think that's something that changes over time. And when you're in transition or when you're looking for something different, it's super important to evaluate what your values are at this time and then try and match them with an employment opportunity because that really increases your overall satisfaction. And then, of course, there's a well-known personality assessments, and those are great to take because everyone has strengths, everyone has areas for development, everyone has weaknesses, but it's really about not only understanding yourself, but understanding others that you may work with. And all the resources we provide on our webpage are also free. We don't provide resources where you would have to pay or subscribe to anything. Last button here I would like to just highlight, but as I mentioned, click away when you get a chance, is this career exploration button at the very tail end. On this page, this is the process we work with in terms of our NOVA registered customers who come in to really help them understand the local labor market. So we have what's called a career exploration guide that you can work through, and then a lot of resources around how to find information about a typical day, some labor market information websites, salary research sites, understanding market rate, And then this great tool around understanding job postings and what employers are requesting. And then you're doing an evaluation of what you have versus what you may need. And that can be a great discussion around if you find out that you need some skills in order to be more marketable, around how would you get them? How would you obtain those skills? So at the very end of this page, we do have a list of low or no cost training options. Now, again, as I mentioned, Nevin is going to show the City of Santa Clara Library and lots of online resources or free resources available through the library. But NOVA also has just a page highlighting some of these options, which include adult education programs, community colleges, and then a lot of online training options, some of which I'm sure you've heard of, like Coursera, edX, etc. So these can be great for individuals who are looking to upskill or increase their skills. All right, where am I here? I was in box 1 with focus still. No, sorry about that. I meant to go back here. Okay, here. Can you confirm you can still see the web page? Okay, so we were still in focus and I showed you all these buttons ending with the career exploration. So once you know what you want to do, and again, depending on where you are, you would then move forward and select box 2, which is the resume and application. And these are your marketing materials. Now, most people start here, meaning they come in and say, oh, I need a resume, but very important to understand your focus. Once you understand your focus, you're ready to get your resume together. So these two buttons that are available, one is resume, one is applications. We'll select the resume first. And here, lots of great content. Now, we encourage you, even if you have a master resume, to always customize it for that particular employment opportunity. So this T-chart exercise will show you how to customize, and then there's a short video that you could watch. Also, parts of a resume. So every time you select one of these parts, like contact info, objective, summary, work experience, and education, different content will pop up. And to better give you an idea of what a resume might look like, we have templates that you can access and then fill in or add to, or maybe mirror when you're doing your resumes. And so we have different formats like chronological and then a functional or skill-based resume. And if anyone here today is a new graduate or recently received some type of training like a certificate or passed an exam, maybe got an industry certification, you can look at this example as well. Finally, we have tips, that master resume worksheet. There's a great article here on applicant tracking systems, which are scannable resume systems. You probably know that many companies use these. They look at your resume for keyword match or a skill match. And so there's some tips around how to address that. And then people do have questions about cover letters as well. So there's a lot of information here, including some examples of cover letters, and you can look at those. And JobScan is a free resource where you can copy and paste your resume and then copy and paste a job posting, and the service will scan it for you and tell you what percentage match you are. So that can be really helpful to know if you are in fact matching the requirements of that employer, and hopefully be moved forward for that opportunity. Nevin, I see there might be some things in chat and for some reason I can't see it. Are any questions at the moment, just in terms of the first two sections, which was focus and then resume and application?
No, there was one question and I answered that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, for some reason, Zoom's been acting up today and the chat feature has kind of disappeared. I'm
Okay.
not sure why that is, so just let me know. Okay. The other button here under resume and application is application. So what's great about this is there is a downloadable sample employment application. And we would encourage you to download it and fill it in so that you have a hard copy that you could take with you or have at the ready when you're ready to fill out an employment application. Now, we're not saying it'll look exactly like this, but this one will cover at least all the common areas. And many times when you fill out an employment application, you have to maybe pause and go look things up. Like, what was the address of that employer? Who was my supervisor? What was the phone number? What were the dates I was there, right? So this just enables you to fill it out so you have a hard copy that you can use and make it easier for yourself as you move forward. The other part of application, which, everything around employment applications are used for background verification or background checks. That's really the primary purpose of the employment application. So we have information if you have any questions about some of those background checks that might be run. And these vary depending on the position. So not all positions will do all of these background checks, but they will usually let you know if a credit history is going to be run, or if a driving record needs to be run. And of course, that's only in special circumstances. So, if you're driving on behalf of the company and you have to be insured by them. So you could click on these to get more information depending on what background check you feel you might have to go through. And so then we have
Lisa,
to, go ahead.
there's one question. Someone is asking, please post the URL for the PDF that was put up about 5 minutes ago. So if you can tell me the PDF, I'll.
So I think the only thing I mentioned so far was the actual website for myplan.novaworks.org. So this right here.
I shared that link, but I think this person is asking.
Oh, I wonder if they're talking, again, maybe you're talking about the low or no cost training doc. And that is right here, which again,
where is it? I can.
Yeah, so that would be under focus, box 1,
Okay.
all the way over on career exploration, and then at the bottom of that page.
Okay, I'll share that.
Yeah, thank you. And please clarify if that's what the person was asking. I think that might be.
They're asking.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Okay. So yeah, and so these links again prepare you for background checks, and we do want to highlight that there is some information specific to the state of California in terms of what types of background checks can be run and why. And then if anyone thinks that they need to pursue a record clearance program, San Jose State actually has a very good one. And you can click this link and get more information about how to expunge a criminal record and get some assistance with that. All right, so lots of good stuff here under resume and application. So going back to our My Plan, we've talked about the content under focus, also resume and application. Now we're kind of getting in the meat of things with the job search, right? You know what you want, you've got your marketing materials ready, now you're going to job search. So let's go ahead and click on box 3. And lots to do here. Like I mentioned, there's what's called the visible job market, which is job boards. And then there's something called the hidden job market, where up to 80% of all jobs are found. So you want to do a variety of different things. We do have a list of temporary agencies or staffing agencies. These are the more common ones. So if you're not sure, you can click here and get a list. And then the internet resources really talk more about the websites. So the different job boards out there, different maybe state or government job links, etc. So feel free to utilize those. We do want to talk quite a bit about, different ways to job search. So the visible is one, but targeting companies, very important. I'm going to just highlight that using databases to come up with target company lists is a great tool. One of the databases we instruct around is called A to Z. Nevin may go over that because libraries tend to have those. There's another one called Reference Solutions, but there are some tutorials to some of these databases and how to use them on this web page, and then a direct link to A to Z itself. Other ways you might come up with company target lists, which means you're focusing on those companies and digging in terms of strategy. There's Hoover's, there's LinkedIn company pages, etc. And then here are some questions if you are targeting or looking into companies to ask. Going back to job search and networking and visible job market, of course, this is what you see on the internet. I do want to highlight that Nova has a job board, and this job board is open to everyone and the public to utilize. We have what's called a business services team who work closely with employers, and their goal is to bring job opportunities to our NOVA members. But this job board is open and accessible. And so you are welcome to take a look at it, search it. There's major categories, but then we do have some of the public job boards listed here. Some tips around working with agencies or recruiters, what are commonly known as headhunters or temp agencies, and that list of temp agencies. And I will highlight here that events are happening, hiring events, career fairs, they've started again after or I don't know if I can technically say after the pandemic, but things are starting to happen either virtually or in person around hiring events. So you can check these out. They will lead you towards events that might be in your area or within your specialization or field or industry. So don't forget about those job fairs or the events, usually under like Eventbrite. Some companies even host hiring events itself. Networking, I mentioned that statistic, up to 80% of all jobs are found through networking. So it's a very important part of your strategy. So what we say around networking is it's not about asking others for a job, but you're asking for our acronym called AIR, Advice, Information, and Referral. So this is some of what that means, advice. You might approach someone and ask for their advice based on who they are and what your level of interest is. A different person, you might want specific information. And then you may get to the point where you're asking for an internal referral, or if they know someone that they might be able to connect you to at a company or for an opportunity. Again, we know most people are not comfortable with networking, so we've got lots of great information here. You can download a packet. Here's a list of local networking opportunities, so those meetups and local events. And what I really like is this last line that says, here are networking tips for introverts, right? I consider myself an introvert, so I get very uncomfortable at networking events. So here are some great tips to be successful in your networking. Don't forget, volunteering or participating in a professional association is another form of networking. You can open discussions and talk to people and let them know what you're looking for. And you'd be surprised at what kind of leads you can get and where that may put you in terms of an opportunity. We've had so many great stories where someone did not expect a lead from someone that they were volunteering with or maybe wasn't work related, and they were able to find really great opportunities to move forward. Okay, I know I'm going over this fairly quickly because we have limited time, but I just want to make sure we've touched on everything that I wanted to highlight. Again, there's more content here you'll want to go over on your own. So now if you followed along, you know your focus, you've created your marketing materials, you've strategized your job search, you're doing a little bit of everything, but focusing heavily on that hidden job market. So the network, the referral, the connecting to people. And now all of your effort has paid off and you are starting to get contacted. So you need to be ready to interview. As I mentioned, many interviews or standard interviews now are via video platforms. So you're getting practice today by signing in on Zoom and getting comfortable with the platform, but there are other platforms out there. We do not expect interviewing to go away via video. We have been told by employers that they like it, that they believe they will continue to use video interviewing as a platform. So I'll give you some tips in just a moment, but there are things you want to be ready for. And I'm going to go under the first button, which is interview techniques. The body of the interview is somewhat the same as always. It really hasn't changed. There's going to be an introductory question. Tell me about yourself. Why are you qualified for this job? Why should we hire you, right? That's the question that usually gets the interview off to a good start. It's called a summary statement response. So you can click on that, get a description of how you can answer that introductory question, which is an overview of yourself. And then there is an example given, and then of course a worksheet you can work off of, and then sample interview questions, which I'll go over at the end of this interview section. Accomplishment stories. These are mini stories that highlight your strengths or competencies and give the employer a specific idea of how you have done something. You probably have heard of these. There's different acronyms. We call them PSRs at Nova. Other employers call them stars or tasks. Google calls them XYZs, right? But the format really gets to the same response process, which is you're going to describe what you were doing, how you did it. So this is where you really do step-by-step description. And then that impact or result or value add to the employer. So again, many examples. You want to have a lot of these. And so we have a sample kind of format and how that would turn into the response itself. And then again, the worksheet that you can work through to get those accomplishment stories or PSRs ready. Negative questions, you're going to be asked weakness questions. They're standard in an interview. No one likes them. So if you're asked a question like, tell me about a time you didn't get along with a coworker and how you resolved that, or how have you handled a difficult customer in the past who was unhappy about, a product. Those are hard to answer, but we have what's called a sandwich technique. And the sandwich means you always start with a positive, you briefly slip in the negative or the weakness, and then you cover it again with additional positives. So the weakness or the negative is sandwiched between multiple positives. And we go ahead and give you that worksheet to work through again. And we'll go over some questions you might hear when you're asked a weakness or a sandwich question. All right, other things you can look at here. Salary screen. There is going to be a new California law taking place January 1 of 2023, where employers in the state of California are required to post salary ranges in job postings. So that's going to be a game changer. We're going to keep a close eye on it, but you're going to start seeing salaries posted as a requirement. But they'll still ask, what are your salary expectations? So you can take a look here around how you might answer that. Closing the interview, that's once the interview is over, they typically say, thank you so much for interviewing for this position. Do you have any questions for us? Right, so this one gives you some additional questions that you can ask. And here's a list again of sample questions I will go over because they have all the questions we've talked about here. If you're not sure about your skills, use this checklist. People have a really hard time identifying their skills. So you can use this checklist and then build your responses around your strengths or skills. Some of you might be technical in nature. So you might be like a computer programmer, a software engineer. Those are different types of interviews. We have an entire resource page on how to prepare for technical interviews. Make sure to expand these whiteboarding tips and tricks links, as well as the next one, which is links to resources. These are practice sites, some sample technical interview questions. So if anyone in the audience today is technical in nature and expects to receive technical interview questions, this is a great resource for you as well. Okay, just really quickly before I pause, I want to show you the sample interview questions, and they are categorized. They're all in one place. So if you're trying to prepare for that summary response, here are some of the ways you might hear the question. Tell me about yourself. Why should I hire you? What makes you a good candidate for this position, etc. In order to develop mini stories or accomplishment stories or PSRs, you might hear about questions like these. What is your best quality? Tell me about a time when. That is a clue that they want a specific example. It's called a behavioral based question. And you want to be as specific as possible. Sandwich, which is weakness questions. I mentioned a few of those when I was explaining it. But what did you find challenging in your last position? What did you like least about your last job? So that's when you surround it with positives, you sandwich it. I showed you the additional resource for salary screen. And here are questions that you can ask the interviewer. So at that end, when they say, hey, thank you so much. Do you have any questions for us? You could ask any of these or come up with your own. These are not exhaustive in terms of a comprehensive list, but it gives you an idea of what you may want to ask. All right. That's a lot, right? So again, we were on interviewing. I just went over interview techniques. Before I go further, anything, Nevin, in the chat or Q&A that you'd like me to answer?
There's one question can be answered at the end, but I'll read it.
Sure.
You decide. Does NovaWorks do one-on-one coaching for career search?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things I'll go into more in depth after the overview of my plan is Nova Services. And one of the things we do offer is one-on-one career counseling appointments. And you can make multiple appointments and get help from whatever stage you're on. So we don't do any kind of cookie cutter version. We don't make you go to steps, 1 through 10. We talk with you and understand where you are. And then we work with you specifically on your job search and over multiple sessions. And there's a whole team of career advisors that would be available to assist you for as many appointments as you want or need. Okay, great. So a little bit about interview formats. We're going to go over tips, virtual tips in just a moment. But, phone screens are tough. They still do happen. So, they can be difficult if the connection is bad, or maybe one or more people, maybe yourself, maybe English isn't your first language. Maybe someone is soft spoken and so it's hard to hear. So there's a whole set of kind of um, challenges with phone screens, and they tend to be quick as well, meaning the whoever's on the other end, when they do that initial screen, they're kind of just firing questions out at you and trying to make a decision fairly quickly. So here are some techniques to help you handle a phone screen, and then those tips around just coming across more clearly or being able to kind of remove distractions. Panel interviews happening virtually. So I've had many people sign in via Zoom or other video platforms, and then there's several people on the other end. So those are still happening, even if you're not going in person. There is some on-site or in-person interviewing happening, again, depending on company. So those can be difficult, especially via Zoom or video. So you want to handle it kind of same way you would if you were going in person, but just kind of think about how you're doing it via video. But here are some tips there. Group interviews tend to happen a lot in retail, where a lot of job applicants are being interviewed at the same time. I did have some individuals tell us that it was also happening in healthcare. So that can be a strange situation to be in when you're interviewing, but lots of other people are also being interviewed at the same time. And then here we're going to go over video interviews and video tips, just knowing that Zoom is just one platform that we're on today, but there's lots of others. And then we have tips on how to manage an interview here. All right, so that's again very important. The last piece I would mention around interviewing is that negotiation piece. We know people are really uncomfortable with negotiating. It can be about salary. Salary tends to be the highest priority for most people, but it's not the only negotiation piece. Sometimes people are happy with salary or they negotiate salary, and then there's something else. We call this total compensation. So you do want to think about, is there anything else that's important to me that I want to make sure I can negotiate if they're not offering it? Very essential. It starts off collaboratively and you maintain a positive attitude. It's not about me versus them. It's about two entities coming together to get that relationship off to a good start, because you're going to hopefully work for this person or this company and you want that relationship to continue to be positive. So think of that when you enter into negotiation, knowing your market range, knowing your salary, knowing your minimum need. So there is a budget sheet here if you need to know that. And then that total compensation. So maybe you want flex time. Maybe you want to work remote. Maybe you're hoping they cover some professional development costs. Maybe you'd like to get some equipment or be able to attend conferences to continue to develop professionally, right? There's a whole list here you can look at, understand what's important to you. And when you get to that negotiation stage, you might include some of those in addition to salary. we have sample scripts. So these are great. I usually call it the negotiation dance. It's that back and forth. So this gives you samples of the wording and how you can do that back and forth negotiation, and then also your ability to write your own script. And lastly, this last button is around career navigation. We direct individuals here once they've landed a job. Most people do not pay attention to that retention piece, meaning once you start a job, how do you successfully onboard? What do you do in that first 30, 60, 90 days in terms of a plan? And how do you continue to be successful? So over time, this career navigation information will help you as you move forward in your employment. So this is a piece, again, people tend to forget about, like, it doesn't end when I get that job. I need to maintain and still be effective, communicate well, establish relationships, ask for help when needed, etc. So this is a great resource once you land a job and you want to make sure you're successful in retaining it. All right, I'm going to go back to the slides. Any questions here before I get the slides going on the technology piece?
No, we are good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, I know that was a lot of information, but let's go ahead and talk about virtual interview tips in general. We really feel this is important to go over because it's such a standard piece of job search now. And like I said, it's not going to go anywhere. Today, we've had a really interesting day. We had our Nova Wi-Fi go down. Zoom seemed to have some issues today. The chat feature, for example, is something that keeps going on and off, and I don't know what that is, right? So you just roll with it. You just prepare for technology issues. So think about your internet signal and your internet connection. You might want to test that if if you don't have a strong connection at home. Where can you get one? At the library, outside of Starbucks, or inside of Starbucks? Can you go to a friend's house? So you want to be ready. And of course, if something happens that day, you want to have a backup plan, but just being aware of this ahead of time. Ask what video platform will be used. We're on Zoom, but many companies use different platforms. You're going to want to download and play with that ahead of time. Each platform is slightly different, has slightly different functions. Just make sure you're comfortable with it. Make sure you log into your own account, and that would be true if you share accounts as well. Sometimes people log in to meetings and they're under a different name. Maybe their child used their account, their spouse, their partner, their friend. Make sure your account is working for you. You're comfortable with the settings. Rename yourself. Test your equipment beforehand. For example, Nevin and I tested the equipment and the audio and all of that right before the meeting. We do that all the time. Sometimes things go wrong, or maybe your setting was off. You didn't have your audio input or output correct. So really important to set it and test it. And this will be important especially if you're using a public computer. Make sure you're disconnected and log off when you're done. So a couple tips there just to think about. Also want to highlight etiquette or behavior on virtual interviews. Don't use the camera as a mirror. You do want to project and smile and protect energy. And it can be hard to know where to look, especially if there's a panel in front of you. But you're going to want to look at the camera. Dress professionally, and even though it's waist up, typically I would say dress head to toe. There's actually studies done that how you dress really impacts how you project. So don't wear pajama bottoms or slippers, because it will come across differently on screen, even if they can't see that bottom half of you. Do eliminate distractions, so try and find a quiet space, away from small children or pets. Turn off other phones, things like that. So very important. Try not to multitask, because that just is, again, another distraction. Look at the camera, and this takes a lot of practice. I still think I'm not very good at it sometimes. If you look at the people on the panel or on the other side of the interview, it will look like you're not looking at them. So you need to look at the camera instead. If you happen to be in a situation where there is something that occurs, you can turn the camera off or mute yourself. and use the chat to notify people if something is occurring or you need to leave the meeting, etc. All right, so things we never had to think of before because of virtual. If things go wrong, like I mentioned, today's been a little bit weird on site at my workplace. Have a backup plan if your technology does not work. So for virtual interviews, it is helpful to ask before the interview starts if there's a phone number that you could reach out if need be to call, or if a video interview could take place via a phone if the technology fails. Just have something ready. In terms of your background, a neutral background or a setting that looks professional and clean, it can be a blank wall. It could be a very nicely put together background. Just more sparse is probably better than more cluttered. A lot of people use green screens, so just make sure it's compatible with your computer. And then in that case, you can Google, Zoom backgrounds or virtual backgrounds and just come up with something that's appropriate for the interview. You can keep a notepad and pen ready to take notes. That's still really important. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Any questions before I hand it over to Nevin to do an overview of the City of Santa Clara Library Services?
Yes, I see one question. I think we answered that, but someone is asking again if you offer mentors or career coach service.
Yeah, so probably not what I would consider traditional mentoring. Mentor is more someone who kind of almost like advocates for you within a work setting or kind of assists you in a different way. But yes, career advising and career coaching is available, and we'll work with you where you are for job search.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And I will share my screen for a few minutes. Let's see. Do you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Yes, in addition to NovaWorks' great services, public libraries are great places for extra support on your job search and other research, your research. So we are Santa Clara City Library. We have 3 brand locations. So this is Central Park Library, and we have Northside and Mission. With us, you can get a library card. You don't have to be a resident of Santa Clara City. Just showing your picture ID, you can get a library card with us. With that library card, you can access a lot of e-resources or physical resources free. Everything is free in public libraries. And most of the public libraries in the Bay Area have access to these e-resources, depends on where you live. I am going to talk about what we have. In terms of job search, other than that, we have a lot of services. Probably most of you are familiar with these. This is our website, and sclibrary.org. Today, I am going to show you where you can access our e-resources. When you hover on Books and More, here you see research tools. There are 2 ways to see what we have. One is databases by subject, because we have a lot of resources. We wanted to categorize them under each section. Or if you want to see the full list, they are in alphabetical order. So you can see those as well. So today I will show you databases by subject. Here, as you see, we try to categorize all these resources. And when you go to jobs, careers, and professional development, here you will see Coursera, which you can access with your library card, And other Get Set Up is for older people to learn new skills and be active mentally. And even sometimes they offer some programs about job search. And Job Now is kind of similar to what NovaWorks does, but really limited if we compare it to NovaWorks. But this is also free, a resource that they can help with your resume. They can, there are templates, and sometimes you can get also online interview skills. And this is the most important thing, I think, and most of the libraries have access it. LinkedIn Learning, when you click on that, it takes you, let me see here. And then when you say get start, it will ask your library card number, which I typed. And then when you continue, you can learn a lot of new skills, listen to some communication skills and some examples and some interview examples. Here, you can see what you are learning and save some videos for future view. You can do a lot of things and search. This is LinkedIn Learning. Again, you can access it with your library card and PIN number. If you have any questions about these e-resources, please email us or just call us or just come to the library. Wherever you are close to what branch, and could be Mission, could be Northside, could be Central, anyone can help you with your questions. So I know we don't have a lot of times. It's 4:50. Again, please let us know if you have any questions about our e-resources, and we are happy to help you. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nevin. I'll go ahead and just do the last few pages or slide sheets that we want to go over. So amazing resources at the library. The library is such an amazing partner to NOVA. We refer people to the libraries refer people to us. You know, really think of them, you know, entities as just resources for you to help you with your career or anything you might need. So I did say that I would just go over NOVA services briefly. And so I do want to give that information. Again, reiterating, like Nevin said, we are also no cost, so free services to you. We do offer career advising, so thank you for those questions that came up during the presentation. That is probably one of our greatest resources and assets. We have an entire team of career advisors that will meet with you for as long as you need to meet to get you on your way to your next opportunity, regardless of where you are. So if you're really at that focus stage and not clear, or you're more focused and already interviewing, we will work with you on that. We have over, gosh, I don't even know anymore, 25 or 30 workshops. Most of our workshops are scheduled, you know, throughout the month, once or twice or 3 times a month. They're on our workshop calendar. You do need to be registered with NOVA in order to access those. But they're great. They go more in depth into all of the subject areas we talked about. They're interactive. You go into breakout rooms because they are held via Zoom. At the moment, for individuals who don't have technology accessible, they're welcome to come into one of our job centers in Sunnyvale or San Mateo, but we can also access everything via Zoom or remotely. We also do phone appointments. We have a weekly networking group called Connections. We just had it this morning. We had a group of about 50 people join. We have a guest speaker, and then we have opportunities in that meeting for you to break off into smaller groups and connect to others. We do what's called a give ask. We mention successes. So lots of great stuff happening in terms of connecting to others. We do have training services. So depending on grant enrollment, because our funding is provided through grants, we might be able to assist you with retraining, and this would be a certificate or skill development through a training provider. So that's a discussion we can have, and this would be a formal training provider, so not necessarily the free or online resources, but schools like UC Santa Cruz Extension or Foothill De Anza, other maybe private providers as well. And then I did mention the job board and the employer recruitments. This is through our business services team. So they not only maintain our job board, but they also bring in employers to talk to our NOVA members for opportunities, et cetera. But what I would want to mention, and this is where Nevin's overview came into play, is again, you do have to register for NOVA services if you want to utilize our full spectrum of offerings. The web page I went over, completely free, anyone can use, you do not have to register. To join NovaWorks, you do need to be 18 and older and have the right to work in the US. If that's you and you're interested, you're welcome to just call our front desk. We'll tell you how to get started, attend an orientation, get registered. If you are not over 18 or you don't have the right to work in the US, that's where, you know, some of these resources the library showed you and our NOVA webpage can be very, very valuable, including the page that Nevin showed you, and I wrote the name down, Job Now. So that can be a great resource for individuals who may not be able to access NOVA services, but very easy to access. Just call the front desk, say, hey, I'm interested. And we have no residency restrictions either. If you are a resident in Santa Clara County or outside of Santa Clara County, we will assist you if you intend to find work in this area. I do want to show you one more document, and Nevin, maybe you can also include this in the chat. This is an interactive PDF. If you're wondering, you know, based on our presentation today, where you fall within the job search plan, we have like a list of questions you can ask yourself. And so sometimes people are not sure. And you know, you could ask yourself, do you already know your interest? You know, the jobs and if they're available, you know, or do you need to work on this stage? Or are you in resume, you know, asking yourself, do I still need to work on my LinkedIn profile? Do I not have that ready, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a great PDF. And again, my apologies. Normally I can try it again, but I just don't think my chat is working for some reason. It's not. So you could access this through the link, and if you need assistance kind of figuring out where you are, you could go through that document or contact NOVA to get further assistance. And then the last page here is just open Q&A. If anyone has any last minute questions, I keep looking at my watch. Yeah, we're right on the money here with just a few minutes. So feel free to let Nevin or I know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the great information.
I see one raised hand with Crystal. Did you?
I am going to stop recording and
Okay.
move to Q&A session.
Sure.